Space exploration is advancing rapidly. Within the last century, we have launched the first rocket, sent a man to the moon, and explored distant planets, though these soaring advancements come with some moments of confusion, be it from an odd photograph, an unexpected discovery, or a strange occurrence. NASA is the forefront of astronomical developments in 2020, and have stumbled across plenty of these setbacks, humorous happenings, and peculiar moments, all marking key events in our journey to understand and explore the universe. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at some of NASA's discoveries and photographs. Photobombing frog. NASA LEDI spacecraft on September 7, 2013. A rather strange happening took place with the launch of the Lunar Atmosphere Dust Environment Explorer, also known as LEDI spacecraft. The innovative new technology was sent out on a journey to investigate the atmosphere of the moon, taken there by the Minotaur V rocket. The launch, taking place from Virginia's Wallops Flight Facility, was of course photographed. The event holds a notable place in scientific history after all. Though alongside NASA's usual stunning photos, a rather odd image came out of it. A small frog got roped into a quite spectacular event as the launch flung the poor creature sky high, earning him a spot into the photographs of the laddie heading to the moon. The rocket launch was captured via remote cameras, set off by the motion and noise Minotaur 5, the rocket-carrying laddie. These remote cameras took the image, so it took keen eyes to spot the frog in the photographs of the launch. His iconic presence in this photobomb picture has given many a laugh, but this also means there are plenty of skeptics claiming Photoshop came into play. NASA shut down these claims and have confirmed the photograph was real and untampered with, stating the photo team confirms the frog is real and was captured in a single frame by one of the remote cameras used to photograph the launch. This frog isn't the first galactic hitchhiker. A small, free-tailed bat clung to the side of a spaceship's external tank in 2009 and was also caught in the photos and videos of the day. The question left on many people's minds was, is the frog okay? The short answer is that we don't know. But he certainly made fame and left a smile on plenty of people's faces across the globe. However, this astronaut frog made NASA history with his photobombing skills. Jupiter's auroras. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system, fifth from the Sun, and one of 4 other planets in our solar system to have auroras similar to Earth. The auroras are displays of light caused by the Sun's energy and how it then interacts with the planet's magnetic field. This results in a glow at the magnetic poles. On Earth, this is most famously the Northern Lights, are a little different if recent findings are to be believed. Spacecraft Juno, sent to Jupiter to provide updates and new information on the gas giant, has recorded information on electrons that were sent into Jupiter's atmosphere at a staggering 400,000 volts. Some people believe that this excessive electron activity and therefore the incredibly high voltage is what gives Jupiter's auroras their much more vivid, distinctive glows. Though others say that the rare occasions that the electronic activity is this high is not enough to ensure these prolonged glows of the auroras. Juno was able to tell astronomers that the high voltages are caused by the rapid rotation of the planet. The speedy rotations means that the planet replicates the effect of an electric generator on a much larger scale. This allows the electrons to fire these high voltages, resulting in the stunning red, green, and blue glows that come from the planet's poles. The interaction between the sun's rays, electrons, and Jupiter's atmosphere is something that we have never been able to observe prior to sending Juno off out into the solar system. Another key discovery that Juno alerted us to is that Jupiter's auroras seem to be formed from particles coming not only from its poles but from Io, one of Jupiter's 79 known moons. The particles are pushed into Jupiter's magnetic field by Io, come from the volcanoes which emit large quantities of sulfur and oxygen. Whilst it is true that NASA has successfully sent many spacecrafts up into orbit before, Juno is a little different. Juno is the first ever spacecraft that has flown directly above both of Jupiter's poles. The route, journey, and information of Juno is entirely unique, traveling in an oval elliptical orbit around Jupiter's north and south pole. This means the findings Juno is sending back to us about these particles is brand new. Juno is estimated to pass close by to the poles every 53 days, meaning it is traveling at 30 miles each second. This means Juno has mere seconds to capture all these measurements, and it does so using the Juno Energetic Particle Detector Instrument, also known as JETA. Barry Mock, scientist at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, was the leading researcher behind the Jedi technology, who explained what a feat this technology was, stating, "We're very proud of the fact that we were able to pull that off." The confusion begins to arise when Juno did not send back consistent results. Astronomers anticipated consistent high voltages, though Juno has showed that this surge in electron activity is not always present. The firing of electrons appears to be random, with no rhyme or reason behind the different energies and bright auroras. Jupiter's auroras have been named a mystery for this very reason. Jonathan Nichols, a professor from the University of Leicester in the Department of Physics and Astronomy, explains that the uncertainty here is something Juno will aim to clear up in the future, but for now, he is not quite sure how you drive auroras so bright with that particular mechanism. For now, Juno will continue to pass by the poles, and hopefully, as more data is gathered, we will be able to make more sense of the information at hand. If we can figure out exactly what is happening to Jupiter, we hope to be able to apply this to many of the processes to other celestial bodies, such as white dwarfs, exoplanets, and pulsars. At the moment, however, Jupiter's auroras and their fluctuating voltages remain unsolved. Mystery hole in the ISS. The International Space Station orbits 408 kilometers away from Earth and has done since 1998. So it caused a great deal of panic and confusion when a hole suddenly appeared in the ISS seemingly out of nowhere in late 2018. A 2-millimeter hole appeared in the International Space Station found in the orbital compartment of the Soyuz spacecraft. The space station had samples taken to investigate what was behind this odd and troubling occurrence. Whilst the International Space Station is a point of unity following the space race throughout the Cold War, the largest international collaboration, blame was quickly assigned and rifts created following the discovery of this hole. Russian space agency Roscosmos were quick to blame America's NASA astronauts who were on board the ISS at the time of discovery, suggesting that the crew members may have wanted to come home early, having felt more homesick than they had anticipated. NASA, as you may imagine, told a very different story. NASA's account suggested that the hole was a manufacturing error, a result of a poor repair job or inadequate assembly. They suggested that it may have seemingly been in good shape before setting off, but a sealant could have been damaged or begun to degrade once in space. Investigations took place to rule out general space wear and tear, including the possibility of a micrometeoroid strike, a shower of tiny particles that may have caused damage, and instead confirming that the hole was created on the inside of the spacecraft and was more likely a man-made hole. One rebuttal to Roscosmos' claim was that the enclosed nature of the International Space Station means that any drilling would have undoubtedly been heard by other crew members. Furthermore, every individual on the ISS is a renowned expert who is well aware of what an honor it is to be part of the select few people to ever be aboard, and so it is unlikely for them to cause intentional damage. The main concern many people have held is why the two space agencies are engaged in a head-to-head blame game as opposed to addressing why the safety of these crew members was put at risk. In reality, the hole caused a slow drop in cabin air pressure, but nobody was facing imminent danger. However, faulty equipment being employed without question raises a whole new host of issues that haven't been tackled, with many questioning the prioritization of safety within both NASA and Roscosmos. Mission Commander Alexander Gerst explained that the hole was evident and covered by a little glue, making it clear that the hole had been man-made. Whilst this event truly has been unnerving, we may never truly get to the bottom as to the cause of the hole in the ISS in 2018. But we sure hope mistakes don't slip through, whether that be tampering with the equipment or manufacturing errors. NASA, alongside other space teams, are on the cusp of exciting research and discoveries. With the odd confusion, mishap, and humor, they're on the forefront of new scientific breakthroughs. But what do you make of these interesting NASA discoveries and photographs? The attacks on the 11th of September, 2001 in the United States prompted the government to increase the ability of its intelligence agencies to collect and investigate information from domestic and foreign sources. Edward Snowden, an American whistleblower who worked as a Central Intelligence Agency employee and subcontractor for the United States National Security Agency, leaked documents highlighting the scale of information gathered and the tactics used to influence outcomes. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 of Edward Snowden's leaked files. The Art of Deception. Edward Snowden's February 2014 leaked document, The Art of Deception, Training for a New Generation of Online Covert Operations released, was a PowerPoint presentation including 50 slides reportedly made by GCHQ, the British Government Communications Headquarters, in 2012. The presentation was allegedly used for staff training and online covert action accreditation. From the Human Science Operations Cell and Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group that draws from psychology of influence and persuasion and included digital propaganda tactics. The presentation mentions building cyber magicians who can confuse and manipulate targets. One slide includes a roadmap of how their tactics fit together, a guide to practice. It builds upon culture profiling, cognitive biases, scams, propaganda, and in the gambits for deception slide, psychology of magic tricks is heavily drawn from in the attention section. The document is filled with theories on human interaction, how to understand it and game it, influencing outcomes. The document lists techniques for hiding the real, dissimulation through masking, repackaging and dazzling, and showing the false, simulation through mimicking, inventing and decoying. This section includes 3 slides showing UFOs, amongst other unrelated images, believed to be referencing the influencing of UFO cults rather than the presence of UFOs. Nigel Watson, author of the Haynes UFO Investigations Manual, says that while the slides may not be evidence of alien invaders, they are the next best thing for conspiracy theorists, evidence of government mind control. The section also includes the phrase, as part of groups. People make decisions for emotional reasons, not rational ones. The presentation concludes with a full rollout of the training plan, with over 150 JTRIG, known as Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group, and ops staff fully trained by early 2013. Glenn Greenwald, an American journalist and author, wrote an article for The Intercept regarding the leaked documents. He stated that the presentation showed there were core self-identified purposes of JTRIG, including 2 tactics. 1, to inject all sorts of false material onto the internet in order to destroy the reputation of its targets. And 2, to use social sciences and other techniques to manipulate online discourse and activism to generate outcomes it considers desirable. An order from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to Verizon instructing them to hand over all metadata for all U.S. customer phone calls. One of the first items Snowden leaked in 2013 was a secret court order from the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court known as FISA instructing Verizon to turn over metadata from all calls originating in the U.S. over a 3-month period, ending the 19th of July 2013, to the National Security Agency known as the NSA on a daily basis. A note on the order says it's supposed to have remained classified until April 2038. The report was released on The Guardian, written by Glenn Greenwald. According to the document, telephony metadata includes comprehensive communications routing information, including but not limited to session identifying information. For example, originating and terminating telephone number, international mobile subscriber identity number, international mobile station equipment identity number, and time and duration of call. It noted that the telephony metadata does not include the substantive content of any communication or the name, address, or financial information of a subscriber or customer. The document also instructs Verizon not to tell anyone about the court order. While the Verizon court order is the one that was leaked, AT&T and Sprint were also reported to have given their records to the NSA. The leaked court order has raised a series of questions. The main question being, is this a one-off or from a series of similar orders? Also, to what extent does the U.S. government have domestic spying powers? The blanket gathering of records is unusual compared with normal FISA court orders. These are aimed directly at a named target, for example, one that is of interest for suspected terrorist links. While the data does not include substantive content of communication, there is enough data to build an accurate picture of who was contacted, when, how, and where. According to the Washington Post, NSA analysts may not search the records without reasonable, articulable suspicion that the data is related to a specific terrorism case. Only a small fraction of the records are reviewed, officials said. The law used to gain the order is the business records provision of the Patriot Act 50 U.S.C. Section 1861. U.S. Senators Ron Wyden and Mark Udall had reportedly been warning about the interpretation of this act without being able to specify the domestic surveillance programs they found alarming. In a letter to Attorney General Eric Holder in 2012, the U.S. Senator stated, "As we see it, there is now a significant gap between what most Americans think the law allows and what the government secretly claims the law allows. This is a problem because it is impossible to have an informed public debate about what the law should say when the public doesn't know what its government thinks the law says. The 2013 Verizon data grab is similar to a program that was authorized by the Bush administration in 2001 and reported by USA Today in 2006, which implemented the collection of phone call records to analyze call patterns to detect any forbidden activity. The 2013 court order is the first hint that the Obama administration has followed a similar path. The Washington Post noted that the government made 6 requests under the business records provision of the Patriot Act in 2007 during the Bush administration. Obama's first year in office and 212 last year, according to reports to Congress. However, it is not known how many are in the same style as the Verizon request. The NSA program PRISM, which allows the NSA to monitor people's email, web searches, and overall internet use. Following the Verizon scandal, Edward Snowden released details of the NSA program PRISM. PRISM is a tool used by the US NSA to collect private electronic data belonging to users of major internet services such as Gmail, Facebook, Outlook, and others. It is believed to involve the cooperation of at least 9 technology companies, with these companies giving direct access to their systems. The leaked document contains a slide that records the date each company allegedly joined PRISM. Another showed the type of data collected, which included email, chat messages, videos, photos, file transfers, and more. Google released a blog post which stated, "We have not joined any program." That would give the US government or any other government direct access to our servers. The US government does not have direct access to the information stored in our data centers. We had not heard of a program called PRISM until yesterday. We provide user data to governments only in accordance with the law. Our legal team reviews each and every request and frequently pushes back when requests are overly broad or don't follow the correct process. Press reports that suggest that Google is providing open-ended access to our users' data are false. Yahoo and Apple both went on to give similar statements, and Apple spokesman said it has never heard of PRISM. Yahoo released a statement saying, "Yahoo has not joined any program in which we volunteer to share user data with the US government. We do not voluntarily disclose user information." Facebook, while denying being part of PRISM, and giving direct access to the NSA released data regarding all national security requests in a bid to be more open. The company stated that for 6 months, ending December 31st, 2012, the total number of user data requests Facebook received from any and all government entities in the US was between 9,000 and 10,000. According to the Financial Times, in the wake of Snowden's revelations, the Obama administration defended the way it obtains private communications. James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, issued a statement to defend the practice, stating, "Information collected under this program is among the most important and valuable foreign intelligence information we collect, and is used to protect our nation from a wide variety of threats." But what do you make of these 3 things Edward Snowden leaked? Unless you're particularly well-versed in the ancient history of Spain, you've probably never heard of Lady Elche before. She still remains a mystery to most, and continually puzzles experts and researchers who are searching for answers. So today we'll be taking a look at the world of Lady Elche, exploring who she was, her legacy, connections to Atlantis, her elongated skull, and interesting who is the Lady of Elche. If you're still wondering who the Lady of Elche is, she's actually not a person, but a sculpture of a bust of a woman that was discovered in 1897. She was found in Valencia, Spain, on a private estate, and is grown to be one of the most iconic statues in Spain. She was actually first discovered by a 14-year-old boy who overturned a stone and laid his eyes on the statue. The Lady of Elche depicts a woman's head, neck, shoulders, and chest. Some believe that it could have originally been part of a full-body statue before its discovery. What makes it even more interesting is the large and complex headdress she wears that many believe means she was a priestess. Experts argue that the statue dates back to the 4th century BC, but there has been some controversy surrounding the time that the statue would have been constructed. Many believe the statue is nothing to be marveled over, as it's a forgery and not the original. An art historian by the name of John F. Moffat spoke about the age of the statue, saying, "The shape of the nose and eyes couldn't have been carved in pre-Christian Spain due to how delicate they are. Experts throughout the globe continue to argue about when the statue was created, and the aforementioned argument doesn't faze most people who cherish the Lady of Elche. After the beginning of World War II in 1939, the statue was moved. It was put in a castle in France. Later, she returned to Spain in 1971, where she was placed in the permanent collection of the National Archaeological Museum. Since the lady became Spain's national treasure, the people of Spain fought over where it should be held. It was being held in the Museum of Spain in Madrid, when the mayor of Alcapuch for the celebration of the city's 2000th year in 1997. Upon asking to move the Lady of Elche back for a special exhibit, the petition was denied. With the people of Elche in an uproar, the government that had denied the request tried to explain that it wouldn't survive the journey of a mere 250 miles from Madrid to Elche. Whilst it was fragile, many other fragile pieces had been moved across the world on a regular basis. This led people to believe the request was denied simply due to political motivations, and the fear that the people of Elche wouldn't return the statue back to Madrid after the event. People also suggested that if the statue were to be removed from Madrid, other significant relics would be removed as well. The people of Spain continue to argue over the statue and where it should be held. It demonstrates the importance of this iconic statue, as children continue to learn about its history and the stories behind the priestess and school. While Spain continues to teach its people about the ancient relic, there are many differing opinions concerning its origins. Connections to Atlantis. Trying to determine where the Lady of Elche originated from has been largely debated over the years. The origins have continued to puzzle experts who have suggested two main possibilities among other less popular opinions. While some people believe the sculpture is Iberian, others think it represents an Atlantean goddess. When looking at the headdress she wears, researchers have taken a closer look at the spools within it. They've suggested that they are some type of technological headgear that could only have come from the Atlantis civilization. If this were the case, the Lady of Elche may have once belonged to an Atlantic colony. The specific goddess she is said to look like was Tanit, and has also been connected to the headdress that women from an indigenous American population would wear. Another statue of a lady that is seen as almost identical to the Elche was found in Utah. Experts were able to connect the two pieces because they both contain relics made from the same metal. This further supported the theory that she was in fact from Atlantis. Other experts have explored how a similar peaked headdress has been worn in Tunisia in more modern days. They also noticed the jeweler design has Phoenician analogues. Some people looked the refined face of the Lady of Elche and speak to her royal and expressionless. This suggests she could have been something such as an Egyptian queen. With that said, others argue that her facial features are uniquely Caucasian, and therefore must be from Atlantis. It still remains unclear as to where the Lady of Elche truly originated from. Although many aspects point to Atlantis, no one can be sure at this point in time. With so much information readily available at our fingertips, why is it so difficult to determine where she comes from? We can only hope she will be preserved over time to allow us to further explore the history surrounding her origins and eventually reach a definitive answer. Elongated skull and interesting headdress. The last mysterious aspect we'll be evaluating is the elongated skull and headdress of the lady. Both have raised numerous questions among archaeologists, researchers, and other experts. Beginning with the elongated skull, it's apparent after taking one look at the sculpture that the head is elongated. Some people think it's just part of the headdress, but others argue that the skull itself was like this. With only a few researchers backing the hypothesis of the skull, with nowhere near any conclusion. When looking back at the headdress of the lady, what at first glance simply appears to be an unusual and intricate design, looks more like a modern-day communication device. Looking at the side profile, you can see that the circular devices appear to be emitting radio waves. Whilst many argue that this is a fact, others suggest that they're braided hair, which is rotated to create an ornament on either side of the head. She's even been compared to Princess Leia from Star Wars after looking at the way the headdress rounds the side of the statue's face. They've also been referred to as earmuffs that were representative of Atlantis. Parts of Peru and the Andes have been connected to Atlantis. This is where they discovered Anunnaki remains. Another legend explains that there were men who visited Earth from Venus with those types of earmuffs. Of course, this theory surrounding aliens has not been the most popular, but it continues to lead to more questioning of where this statue could have come from. It seems as if the elongated skull and headdress of the lady have not helped in providing the vital information needed to draw conclusions about the mysterious sculpture. Do you think the headdress was ornamental? Could it have served a function in a more modern world? These questions have yet to be answered with any certainty. Until that day comes, we'll have to work with the information we currently have and decide for ourselves. Now that you've gained insight into the mysterious world of the Lady of Elche, what do you think? Whilst it's clear that there are certainly more questions than answers, it's interesting to learn about the history and places the sculpture could have. Experts continue to delve into the finer details, searching for more. We may not know where the Lady of Elche came from in this lifetime, but as science and technology continue to progress, who's to say we won't find the answers we're looking for one day? So what do you make of these mysteries surrounding the Lady of Elche? Vi Loeb, who is the chairman of Harvard's Department of Astronomy, claims that he thinks he's found proof of extraterrestrials, and this came in the form of some garbage. He has an upcoming book titled Extraterrestrial, The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth, and in it he details that mysterious objects that made its way into our solar system may be proof of extraterrestrials. It's not very often that you get hyper-officials talk about this subject. However, this year alone, many government officials have been quite vocal about the UFO phenomena and have stated in recent years unidentified crafts have been detected in our skies and that these objects need to be taken more seriously. The objects the professor is talking about immediately displayed some strange signs. In this course, scientists and researchers from around the world to speculate what it was. The object was given the name of Oumuamua, but the professor has given some examples of why this object might not be a space rock, and that it could actually be a piece of alien technology. On the 19th of October 2017, we were visited by something that scientists couldn't initially explain. It was called Oumuamua, and astronomers first noticed this object traveling through our solar system. The object in question had come from another solar system, and people quickly started to speculate what the object was. It could be seen traveling around the sun and then shooting away again. However, after this, it was not to return. Astronomers were able to record data on the object for a short period of time, with them saying that the mysterious object had been in our solar system for over a century. The reason Oumuamua wasn't spotted until 2017 is because it wasn't close enough to reflect enough light for astronomers to pick up. Even when it did get close, it was moving very fast, and meant astronomers had very little time to observe it. Once the strange object flew around the sun, it was getting further away, meaning it was getting fainter and fainter. The astronomers' very last observations from Hubble were on the 2nd of January 2018. On the 3rd of May, it was then seen outside of Jupiter's orbit. The first theory that was put forward was that it was an asteroid. The scientists looked at the size of the object, which was 2,600 feet or 800 meters long and around 260 feet or 80 meters wide. However, in June it was reported that astronomers stated that the object was not moving as it should. They picked up on the fact that Oumuamua showed a really strong non-gravitational acceleration. This tells the researchers that its motion indicated that gravity was not the only thing dictating its path. Many people have put forward their theories, one of which is that this object is extraterrestrial in nature. The fact that it moves like nothing researchers have seen before could indicate it's under intelligent control. Most scientists suggested that Oumuamua was likely something natural, and that its acceleration was due to a natural phenomenon. The next idea was that this mysterious object was releasing a large amount of hydrogen, and this was causing it to speed up. Interestingly though, not everyone has agreed with this theory. Going back on the 17th of August, a new paper was published in the astrophysical journal Letters. Loeb and Thiam Hong, who are astrophysicists at the Korea Astronomy and Space Science Institute, have said they don't think the hydrogen idea holds up and that it wouldn't work in space. This has caused some excitement as some have gone back to the idea that this is alien tech. After all, there's many strange properties about this object that researchers can't explain. For example, the way it mimicked a comet, but yet it didn't have a tail. Also, NASA themselves reported that the interstellar visitor is 10 times long as it is wide, and that this aspect ratio is far greater than any asteroid or comet observed in our solar system to date. This giant cigar-shaped object is still up for debate, and it seems with this recent paper being released we aren't any closer to understanding what this mysterious object is. Dr. Bailey from Harvard University said the following about the object. "I wouldn't say I believe it's sent by aliens, as I am a scientist and not a believer. I rely on evidence to put forward possible physical explanation for observed phenomena. It seems, however, until we have more evidence we can't come to a conclusion on what this object is. Ultimately, it will be very difficult to find out more about Oumuamua, as it's no longer in the solar system. According to some, Oumuamua is expected to reach the Kuiper Belt in around 2024. Lope started to open his mind to the possibility that this mysterious space object could be something else, and that, as mentioned, it may be a piece of alien tech that's made its way into our solar system. Those who heard about the professor putting forward this idea gave him prompts, saying that it's not very often that someone in this field has an open mind and puts forward these kinds of theories. So when it happens, they should be told that it's appreciated. This is one of the problems that people have when scientists put forward their theories. They say that it's a little frustrating when scientists try to explain things straight away, and it feels as though they don't like to leave things as unknown. When it comes to the universe, it's fair to say that humans don't know very much. And why would we? Modern humans haven't been studying the cosmos for very long. So how can you expect us to know all of the answers? Every so often, a discovery like this is going to come along. And there's nothing wrong with having an open mind about what it is and where it came from. As of right now, scientists and researchers still disagree on what this strange object is, and have said that we'll have to wait for it to come back around again for us to study it in more detail. Some scientists have said the asteroid or comet theory doesn't hold up due to its shape, and because of the way it was acting, with other scientists saying it's an exciting object that needs to be studied in more detail. So what do you guys think Oumuamua is? Do you think it's a space rock? Or do you agree with the professor that it could be a piece of alien egg? Robots in our lives are very much becoming the norm. There's been a lot of talk about dolls that can be created to do one specific job, and that is to bring joy to partners in certain departments. For the past few years, these dolls have been aimed at a male audience, but now robotic companies are working on creating robots for females, and some researchers have said that if they're created correctly and are a hit, they could replace men entirely. The robots will be made for the sole purpose of fulfilling certain needs, and so far people that have been shown these robots and have seen the videos are torn. Some think that these could make good company, and others who think the whole idea is a bit creepy. Regardless what you think, these robot creations are being made and are selling. Companies have said the numbers show that people are interested in this type of relationship, and that it's not just men who are buying these. As numbers show, male dolls are selling faster than ever. Companies behind these creations have said that to get your new man working, all you have to do is charge him, and once charged, he will be able to last for hours. The robots are also able to respond to what you say, with companies saying this is something they're working on, and ideally, in the future, male robots will be able to have full conversations with their partners. Scientists who study human interaction and the human brain have said this is a worrying pathway going down. One female scientist said the following: "I think that within the next 10 to 20 years, you're going to see a huge increase in these robots. I believe men are an important part of society, but an interesting question here is, could they be replaced by these robots? If companies can create them so they can fulfill women's needs, I think it's very possible." End quote. However, others are not so open to the idea and think that creating them in the first place will only have negative effects. Some say that it will only cause people to lose things like their social skills. After all, if you get to the point in which you're able to order in one of these dolls and they get to the point in which they can help around the house, we could see a huge increase in people becoming introverts and losing their social skills. Not only this, but another thing that's been brought up is that, is it healthy to have this kind of relationship with a robot? Those who speak against this say, do we really want to get rid of a real human experience and replace it with a robot? These male robots might be able to bring you pleasure in certain ways, but some have worried that it will leave you feeling cold by the end. Unless they are developed to the point in which you can have a conversation with them, what would be the point in doing this with them? One of the key things that companies are working towards is bringing women the perfect male partner. One of the problems with this, though, is that perfect is subjective. So what one woman may find attractive in a man, another woman doesn't. Opinions on looks and what they should sound like aren't facts. So it's going to be tricky to find a balance that will be universally loved by women. One way these companies are working to ensure that this partner is perfect is by ensuring that it's not just good at one thing, but rather it will be able to help a woman in all aspects of her life. One idea that's being looked into is trying to make sure that this robot is a life partner to a woman and that it can support her in a variety of different ways. There are some companies that say this would work great for most people, and that you wouldn't have to nag these robots or tell them what to do, as they would already be programmed to do what you tell them. This has of course caused some to say that what you're actually buying is a servant rather than a lifelong partner. Not everyone is a fan though. One woman said the following, "I can understand what they're trying to achieve, and I'm sure that some women would like this. But for me, this just seems like an unhealthy approach to fix some issues women may have. Instead of teaching women that they can create the perfect male robot, how about teaching them about what's important for them to love themselves and why they shouldn't settle if they're in a bad relationship? Creating a robot that is your perfect man seems like a good idea on paper, but the bottom line here is that they will always be a robot. Their emotions won't be raw. They won't have a backstory. They won't have a family, and everything will feel artificially created to suit you. And knowing that kind of takes the fun out of it." End quote. Well, this man said the following, "I've read these articles and they have me in dreams. I've heard that they also plan to bring them out for men, and if they did, I'll definitely get one. I'm socially awkward and I've never had a girlfriend. Every time I try to interact with girls, I just clam up, and I end up making a fool out of myself. It then sets me back and puts me off talking to girls in the future. I can live with that because it's just how I am. I have a really tough time around girls. But for me, this would make me feel a lot more relaxed. I would feel like I wasn't being constantly judged. So for me, if something like this came out just for men, I would definitely invest. I feel like a lot of men who struggle to talk to girls would buy one of these." End quote. So what do you make of this idea? These companies are aiming to bring out both male and female robots. Would you ever consider buying one of these? And do you think it could actually work in the real world? Also, do you think it's healthier if someone bought one of these as a life partner? In recent years, governments have been more open about UFOs. This has caused some amateur researchers to suggest that disclosure could be coming. UFOs is an interesting topic, and for decades, people across the world have been encountering strange crafts in the sky. This has caused some UFO researchers to look further into the subject, with some saying that ancient accounts detailed mysterious objects flying at fast speeds. One of the most famous accounts was detailed in an old Egyptian papyrus, saying that the objects seen by the ancient Egyptians were brighter than the sun, even going on to detail them as a circle of fire or a fiery disk. At the moment, there's a lot of talk around UFOs and space forks, and why the government decided to set up this new branch. Insiders are saying that before President Trump leaves office, he could reveal the truth about UFOs and what the government knows about them. Interestingly, going back a few months ago, the president was interviewed by his son. And during the interview, he talked about unidentified flying objects and aliens. He said the following, "Before you leave office, will you let us know if there's aliens? Because this is the only real thing I want to know. I want to know what's going on. Will you ever open up Roswell and let us know what's going on?" President immediately responds with the following, "So many people ask me this question. There are millions and millions of people that want to go there, that want to see it. I won't talk to you about what I know about, but it's very interesting. Roswell is a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on." Donald Trump Jr. then responds with the following, "So you're saying you may declassify it?" To which Donald Smilson says, "I may have to think about this one." Many people in the UFO community were excited by this interview, with some suggesting that perhaps big news could be coming in the next few weeks. One person said the following, "I really like how he talks so openly about this. It's not something you see very often in politicians. He seemed very confident about what he was talking about. He didn't stutter and seemed almost happy talking about the subject." End quote. The interview and some of his comments have led some to believe that the president could release some classified information to the public. It's said that the Pentagon and other spy agencies are going to tell the public about everything they know about UFOs. This has happened before through declassified channels. with government officials and documents revealing that these unidentified flying objects have been observed over military installations. However, when the military have gone on to investigate them, they've said they suddenly disappeared or sped off at high speeds. Although this information has been available to the public for years now, there's others who have said the Pentagon are sitting on much more classified information, and that it's unlikely that this information will ever get released. And this comes down to not wanting to worry people about the truths of our universe. However, as Summer pointed out, the president could reveal the truth about what he and the government knows. If he does, it would be the first time that any president openly revealed classified information to the public. This move was said to have been pushed by Marco Rubio, who detailed that mysterious crafts had been detected flying close to military bases. He went on to say that he hopes the crafts were being piloted by aliens and not the Russians. One of the reasons that people think these crafts aren't piloted by humans is because of what they're able to achieve. For example, when our best military jets go after them, they can easily outmaneuver them, with some pilots even saying that it looked like these crafts were toying with them. If some other country has this technology, not only are they hundreds of years more advanced than the US, but they're able to achieve things that no other jets can. This is why some have put forward the idea that these crafts are being piloted by something unknown, as we have no tech on this planet that we know of that's able to achieve these things. This interview, along with all the other recent UFO news, has only caused excitement among some. After all, going back a few months ago, the Pentagon formally released 3 unclassified videos taken by Navy pilots. The mysterious video showing UFOs have been circulating for years. It's caused various theories to be put forward to try and explain them. However, for skeptics, they wouldn't believe the footage until the government came forward and announced they were real. And this is exactly what happened a few months back. And they've been given the name of unidentified aerophenomena. Although this is massive news, it's not anything new. Pilots have been coming forward for years and detailing their interactions with unidentified flying objects. One person said the following: "Comments are interesting, and even after they captured these unidentified aerial objects on camera, it still feels like they're downplaying it. Although this is great news, and I'm happy they're admitting the videos are genuine and show something mysterious. What about all the people that have been told to be quiet when they've talked about their encounters? And I'm not just talking about everyday people. People in high positions who have tried to talk about these objects have just been branded as crazy. Where's the justice in that? All they were trying to do was reveal what they saw and were told to be quiet, with some people even losing their jobs or being demoted over it." End quote. Interestingly, celebrities like Tom DeLonge have been vocal about UFOs. Going back a few months ago, Tom DeLonge said the following: "Everyone will know the reality soon, and unfortunately, it's not something to be laughed at. It's pretty unnerving, with some bad news, some good news, and with that in mind, all we can do is deal with it honestly and openly." End quote. Now, we may know what he was referring to. It turns out that in a statement by Steve Justice, who is the chief operating officer of To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, they say how the organization got their hands on exotic properties. He said the following about the object: "The structures and composition of these materials are not from any known existing military or commercial application. They've been collected from sources with varying levels of chain of custody documentation, so we are focusing on verifiable facts and working to develop independent scientific proof of the material's properties and attributes." End quote. So what do you guys make of the president's comments? And do you think he will release any information about UFOs before he leaves office? Uncovering the secrets of the past continues to be a fascination for many. The pyramids are some of the most impressive structures we have on our planet. They've survived the test of time and have caused a lot of theories to be put forward in recent years to how they were built. Going back several years ago, someone uploaded a video of them traveling to Egypt. In the video, we can see they sent a remote control car within the Great Pyramid. And they said they found something that the government would want to keep a secret. This interested many, and it was soon revealed that a website was set up called nowinow.com, which had on it a countdown until the big reveal was going to happen. The short video shows a card being sent down a small tunnel in one of the pyramids, and as it gets deep inside, many strange symbols and markings can be seen. But the most interesting discovery is said to be a secret chamber that shows a tall figure inside. When the video was uploaded, many different theories were put forward to try and explain it, with some saying that the footage is real and shows some of the secret tunnels within the pyramid, while others said the video was a hoax and was likely a viral stunt. Regardless, one thing this video did do is get people talking. The uploader cut the video and said that more interesting discoveries will be revealed if they don't meet their demands. One of which was that they wanted to be paid $5 million for the video. The following statement was put on the website. "You have 30 days to pay me $5 million or I will upload the rest of the video." End quote. The rest of the video didn't get uploaded and whoever was behind the stunt suddenly went quiet, again, sparking more out there theories for what happened to the individual and why the long version of the video was never uploaded. Some even suggested that due to the sensitive nature of the finding, he may have been silenced by the Egyptian authorities, while others said it was a scam and because they didn't get their money, they just left it. One person said the following: "Unlike most, I don't think it's some viral marketing. I think that this could actually be the real deal. However, what I suspect is that they made the RC car with a plan. They basically knew exactly what they was going to do from the beginning, and was so confident they was going to find something interesting that they filmed it all, from building the RC car until his arrival at the pyramids. This indicates that he was there before and found the shaft at least. However, how could he have known he would find something interesting beforehand? Maybe his RC car would have run into a brick wall. That would make all the filming, the RC car building, etc. waste." End quote. Well, another person said this: "Even if the video is fake, I think the pyramids are hiding some secrets. I still think there's many undiscovered rooms and tunnels underneath the pyramids themselves. And I've heard Egyptologists talk about there being a huge complex underneath the structure. Regardless of whether the video is real or not, the bigger question here is what are the pyramids hiding?" End quote. Well, this person said this: "If you watch the video, it does look legit. I've read some theories that the individual worked in the area and were tipped off about there being undiscovered shafts in the pyramids. It's obvious that some officials are ignoring evidence and fail to further investigate these claims. I've even read that you may have been a tour guide in the area and wanted to show the world what really lied within the pyramids." End quote. In recent years, many interesting discoveries have been made in and around the pyramids. One most notable ancient society seen as the cradle of human civilization were the advancements made by the ancient civilization of Egypt, and over the years some mysterious discoveries have been made inside one of their greatest creations. Recently, scientists made the discovery that electromagnetic properties exist in the Great. This could mean that nanoparticle designs could be designed for highly efficient sensors and solar cells. The scientists and researchers have discovered that the giant pyramid concentrates electric and magnetic energy into its internal chambers. This is located below a space and it creates a pocket of higher energy. As many of you know, the pyramids have inspired many legends over the years, and some think the Egyptians were way ahead of their time. One of the biggest questions is how did this civilization build such impressive structures? Some of the world's greatest minds have said it's perhaps one of the greatest ancient mysteries. Dr. Andre said the following: "Egyptian pyramids have always attracted great attention. We as scientists were interested in them as well. So we decided to look at the Great Pyramid's radio waves. The international research team noticed that the shape of the Great Pyramid of Giza and its ability to focus electromagnetic energy. The team then created a model of the pyramid as they wanted to measure its electromagnetic response. By doing these studies, the team was able to see how the wave energy was being scattered or absorbed by the pyramid. The scientists have said that the ancient Egyptians were not aware of this design. However, some have questioned how the ancient Egyptians would have been able to do this by mistake. The pyramid is special though. As mentioned, it is able to focus wave energy through its core. It seems that every year researchers find out more about the pyramids. The Great Pyramid is located at the center of the landmass of the Earth. The four faces of the pyramid are slightly concave, and it's thought that this is the only pyramid to have been built this way. The centers of the four sides are indented with an extraordinary degree of precision. This means that it actually forms an 8-sided pyramid. What's bizarre though is that this can only be seen from the sky. What many have pointed out is why can we only see this when you're above the pyramid? What use would this have in a time when air travel was not possible? Some researchers have also said this wouldn't have been done by mistake, and that it hasn't caused the overall structure to suffer in any way. So what do you make of this? Do you think the video is the real deal? Or do you think it's fake? Also, if you think it's real, what do you think they captured inside the pyramids? As technology has continued to grow, we find that there are very few last unexplored frontiers. Satellite imaging has helped to locate all of the lands on our planet, and has helped researchers peer deep into the oceans. Due to recent advancements, we've even been able to see what's hiding underneath dense jungles. This has in turn allowed us to uncover a wide number of IMPO artifacts in hidden cities. However, it appears that despite all of our technology, the deep forests of the world prevent many from exploring these areas further, and has meant that amateur researchers have made their way into these areas with the hopes of making their own discoveries. There's no shortage of mysterious photos. Due to social media, many of these photographs have been shared online, causing some to take it upon themselves to investigate them further. However, many of these remain unexplained as more information can't be gathered. One interesting photograph that's made the rounds on social media is this one, and it shows a strange man in the background of a woman's photo. The picture usually gets shared to paranormal groups on Facebook, asking if anyone can reveal more information about the photograph. In it, we can see a woman taking a photograph of herself out in the middle of some woods. However, in the background you can see a tall man looking directly at her. Some of the people that saw the image questioned what was standing behind her, with some saying that it doesn't look like she realized she was being watched. One person said that it could be someone who was following her, and as they were approaching she managed to photograph the individual, while others say the person looks like they're trying to dress like the Slender Man, and say that this post is most likely fake. Regardless, there's no shortage of these kinds of photographs, and some have said that when they've snapped the photos, they didn't even realize they were being watched. Over the years, many of these photographs have been shared, and it's caused some to come forward and share their own stories. One person said the following about their strange encounter. I remember when I was young, me and my friends would often visit our nearby woods. At the time we were teenagers and we'd always go to the woods a few times a week. We lived close to Elfin Forest in California, a place known for mysterious happenings. And although the forest is creepy when it gets dark, we never encountered anything up to this point. I remember that me and my friend headed there one evening when it was still light, and as we made our way to our spot, my friend said she noticed something off into the distance, saying that it looked like a tall man with a hand. When I tried to see what she was talking about though, I couldn't find the strange man. We joked about it, saying that it was probably one of the many ghosts that reside within the forest, and then we went on to our spawns. After being here for just under an hour, we decided to make our way back as it was getting dark. Just before we left, I was talking to my friend and I noticed that something had caught her attention in the distance, and it was obviously something that had troubled her as her face went completely white. Without even turning around, it sent chills at my spine as I'd never seen this happen to anyone before. And it was almost like a sixth sense was telling me that we weren't alone. Before she could tell me what she'd locked eyes with, I quickly turned around, and standing around 20 feet from us was a tall man with a hat. I guessed that it was the same person that my friend had seen previously. This person had long arms and a gaunt face. Perhaps the most disturbing thing about this individual was that he had a huge smile on his face. We must have stared at him for at least 20 seconds, and during this time he didn't blink once. He just stood there and stared at us. We got up as quickly as we could and ran out the forest. When I turned around to see where he was, I could see that he was just slowly walking towards us, still smiling at us and not blinking. We got out of there as quickly as we could and didn't really say much on the way home. The encounter gave me chills as this person seemed to have just appeared out of nowhere, and something I can't get out of my mind is how creepy the smile was and the way he just slowly walked towards us. We've never gone back to that part of the forest." End quote. Another location that's said to be haunted is that of Dew Hill in India. The Dew Hill forest is plagued by a number of strange supernatural sightings and disappearances. Many locals and tourists alike have reported seeing children running through the forest at night, appearing to be deformed or startling in their appearance. However, these claims have only become more and more popular, as many skeptics flock to the site with the hopes of dismissing these claims. only to capture a tremendous amount of images and footage of school children running through the forest at night. Oddly enough, the Victoria Boys' School located in that region and established in the 1800s is rumored to be the hotspot for parallel activity from the forest. There are no faculty members that will work late at the school throughout the night, and janitors and other employees that are forced to work through the night tend to have a high rate of turnover and quit the job. Many students during the day also report footsteps echoing throughout the corridors, doors slamming behind them, and even sightings of ghostly encounters in the locker rooms, with them saying that no one will go to the bathroom alone due to fear of seeing something. Additionally, given the history the school has had when connected to Old British expansion, some are theorized that perhaps a darker history took place in the region, giving birth to such paranormal occurrences. Today, the number of strange reports have only grown in the area, with locals saying that it's not uncommon to see mysterious beings with red eyes running through the forest, loud screams that echo from tree to tree, and black shadow figures that suddenly appear in front of you, only to vanish just as quickly as they appeared. So what do you make of these stories? And have you ever encountered something strange while in a forest? Have all seen, or at the very least are familiar with Disney's The Lion King? As dark as some aspects of the film are, the reality is that The Lion King is rather vanilla in light of one distinct tribe of lions who over time were coined the title the Mapogos. In the world of lions, a pride refers to a group of females namely, whereas a coalition refers to a group of males. Although the Mapogo lions came to be known for their greatness and expansive territories under their stern reign, like many, branched out from humble origins. Their tale began in the heart of the Sabi Sands Reserve in the northeastern region of South Africa. Born into the Sparta Pride were 10 cubs, 5 of which were male. Now anyone who knows the Mapogos and their legend knows that their coalition was comprised of 6 males. You may be wondering his time to shine comes a little later into the story. From the beginning throughout their cub lives, it was clear that the cubs were destined for something special. One clear example of this was on one fateful day. 5 of the 10 cubs tragically lost their lives during a buffalo hunt. The 5 who remained and narrowly missed a similar unfortunate fate were none other than the Mapogos. It was not until 2003 when the 6th member would join the pride. It is not reliably known where exactly his origins were, but at about 4 years senior to the cubs, a new male came into the picture. That male was none other than Makulu. Usually when a new male is introduced, it is a rather unpredictable and vulnerable time for both, those being intruded upon and the intruder himself. Can go either way, with an air of welcoming and acceptance, or with a blood battle and usually annihilation of the cubs, as a new male typically sees no purpose in rearing the cubs of a latter male. Typically they prefer to start fresh. This, however, was not the case. I guess you could call it another lucky draw in the cards of the Mapogos because this new male did not in fact pose a threat, and nor was he threatened. They took on to each other equally well, and to biologists' surprise, Makulu joined the elite forces of the Mapogos. As the cubs grew with the passage of time and reached their sexual peak, they were exiled by their fathers to lead prides and own territories of their own. Once again, to biologists' surprise, instead of going their separate ways, the Mapogos remained alongside one another and instead formed their own coalition. This is the point where they came to be referred to as the Mapogo Coalition, a Swazi term that translates to security or jury and teamwork. Ironically, the coalition came to fit their title rather well. Considering that the Mapogo Coalition was compiled of 6 members, this was a distinguishing factor from the very start. Typically, coalitions are not so large in number, but this distinct factor may have been the extraordinary advantage that aided them in conquering so much territory with time. However, having been freshly exiled by their forefathers, it would take some time for the Mapogos to hone the necessary skills they would need to do so. For starters, they needed to perfect their hunting skills. Originally, they had to adapt more of an opportunist type of feeding behavior by eating the leftover carcasses of prey hunted by other lions. However, with time, they were able to master the art of capturing and hunting down buffalo, hippo, rhinoceroses, and even a tricky prey, giraffe. The Mapogos' superb hunting mastery, as well as their continued sexual maturation where their manes began to be more pronounced, greatly contributed to a newfound growing confidence. Some may even go to the extent of saying their confidence was laced with an air of cockiness because what would happen next stunned many biologists. They began to enter rather dramatically and obnoxiously. Instead of quietly coming through without intentionally causing much disturbance or ruckus, they started an uproar wherever they set their paws forward, by roaring, scent marking, and challenging opponent lions. It is safe to say they caused quite the disturbance. Instead of waiting for a challenge, they went to the challenge. This type of behavior led to both negative and positive consequences. The positive mainly being that they were able to conquer so much territory and prides, and the negative being that they were attributed to a dramatic fall in the lion population. The rampage did not exclusively apply to male lions. Rather, lionesses and cubs were slaughtered in the process, and viciously so. Victims' limbs were torn apart. The cannibalistic behavior was one characteristic that attributed a tremendous shock value to the onlooking observers and biologists because this was not something commonly exhibited. Whether the cannibalism was to make a statement or to truly prey upon is unclear. One pride that particularly suffered at the paws of the Mapogos was the Ottawa pride, which was comprised of 3 females and their fellow cubs. The cubs were annihilated and eaten, and in turn, the Mapogos proceeded to attempt to mate within the pride as a means to continue on their own bloodline. The mating caused some uproar and controversy within the coalition itself, which actually resulted in one of the lionesses being a casualty as a product of those differences. But for the lionesses that did survive from the Ottawa pride, they served to continue the bloodline of the Mapogos. Fast forwarding through time, the Mapogos conquered the majority of the Sabi Sands through their aggressive methodologies. One can say they reigned with iron paws, members of the Mapogo Lion Coalition and their dominance. When we hear of the Mapogos, we usually hear of them as a unifying force rather than them individually as lions. So who were the 6 special warrior lions that made up the Mapogos exactly? There was Makulu, Pretty Boy, Rasta, Scar, Mr. T, and Kinky Tail. Makulu. Makulu was the oldest and largest lion of the coalition. He had a dark-colored mane, which is a product of higher testosterone levels, which most definitely aided in ascertaining his dominance as he was the dominant male of the group for the majority of the coalition's reign. When it came to cubs, Makulu was observed to be the most patient of the group. He was also the most solitary amongst the other lions. Whereas the other members tended to be socially interlinked with their fellow brothers more frequently, Makulu was seen to be away from his coalition and pride for days at a time patrolling the territory. Having to patrol such a vast region probably attributed greatly to that solo behavior as well. Amongst the other lions, Makulu was the expert when it came to patrolling and took on that role with pride and precision. Pretty Boy, as his name suggests, Pretty Boy was indeed a pretty boy, having a wind-swept and full mane attributed greatly to producing a handsome appearance that many onlookers certainly noted and admired. Scar, once again, as his name suggests, Scar was named after 2 scars that were noticed, and the other on his left hind hip. Rasta. Rasta was named after some matted areas in his mane that made some strands appear like dreadlocks. For this reason, he was interchangeably referred to as Rasta and Dreadlocks. Mr. T. Over time, Mr. T. actually began to be nicknamed as Satan because of some questionable behaviors that he illustrated. Mainly the cannibalization of his brother's cubs, which in human terms would essentially be his nieces and nephews. That itself is very telling of who Mr. T was as a lion. Out of all the other lions, Mr. T stood out as the most aggressive and vicious in nature. He was an excellent hunter, a challenger, and rarely let go of an opportunity to get his paws dirty. One could also say that he was bloodthirsty and power-hungry, whereas the other lions were fairly content with Makulu as their dominant leader. Mr. T challenged Makulu for dominance on several occasions. It was not until Makulu had gotten older that Mr. T was actually successful in attaining that long-sought-after dominance. As far as appearance goes, Mr. T was characterized by a mohawk-looking mane, not quite as full and handsome as his fellow coalition counterparts. But what he lacked in appearance, he most certainly made up for with his iron paws. Kinky Tail was named after a kink at the rear end of his tail. Kinky Tail was similar to Mr. T in the sense that he was aggressive, willing to get his paws dirty and up for any challenge, which is not very surprising considering that Kinky Tail was essentially the wingman of Mr. T. Kinky Tail and Mr. T were inseparable, and exhibited such a strong and loyal brotherly bond with one another. Where one went, the other most certainly followed. I guess this goes to show that even the most iron of iron paws have a soft filling within. What happened to the Mapogo Lion Coalition? As great as the Mapogo Lions were, it is also true as with any other reign, each kingdom has its downfall. The same was true for the Mapogos. Although their legacy does live on today, through the bloodline they successfully passed down through the Ottawa Pride. What led to the downfall of the coalition and their command over such vast regions comes down to a couple of culprits. Firstly, it started with a divide from within. After a spat between Mr. T and Maculu, Mr. T left with Kinky Tail, to which they formed a coalition of their own, just the two of them. This was something unique to biologists, the fact that a coalition had divided into two coalitions. This left Mr. T and Kinky Tail to claim the eastern regions of the Sabi Sands Reserve, while Maculu reigned over the west with the other members of the coalition. For a while, Mr. T and Kinky Tail were as successful as they ever were with challenging intruders and holding on to their territory. However, that strong reign was threatened with the intrusion of a new coalition of 5 young males known as the Majingalanes. Initially, Kinky Tail and Mr. T were successful in making the Majingalanes coalition short of one member by brutally attacking one of the members, causing the lion to lose its life. However, the Majingalanes were not fazed. Instead, they were set on avenging the loss of their brother, Majingalanes, and were successful in cornering Kinky Tail one night while he was patrolling during one of the few instances he was alone. The saying, "What goes around comes around," seems to ring hauntingly true in this case. Just as Kinky Tail was responsible for taking many lives and doing this gruesomely, Kinky Tail was just as gruesomely attacked to his very last breath by the 4 Majingalanes. Unfortunately for Mr. T, he was too late to save his brother. That didn't stop him from attempting to do so, although his efforts proved to be futile. Seeing as he no longer had his wingman, Mr. T decided to track down his long-lost fellow Mapogo brethren. He successfully encountered them, still strongly ruling and thriving over the western region of the Sabi Sands with prides of their own. Mikulu was initially skeptical about welcoming Mr. T back, and perhaps for good reason, for what would end up spiraling with his cubs at the paws of Mr. T. However, the remaining Mapogos, Pretty Boy, Rasta and Scar, readily welcomed back their long-lost brother. After having annihilated the cubs of the Pride, Mr. T was able to weasel his way up to establishing dominance over the Pride and Coalition. However, that was short-lived, because in 2012, yet another coalition of 5, the Salati Coalition, intruded and were successful in decimating Mr. T. Just as Kinky Tail had suffered such a savage end, Mr. T was destined for a similar fate. The two brothers that had once been so inseparable lost their lives due to products of the ferocious lifestyles they had so passionately upheld. The Mapogo's power steadily dwindled thereafter. It is unclear what became of the remaining. Were also attacked by the Majingalanes after never successfully returning from a patrol. Bakalu and Scar ended up being the most long-lived individuals of the coalition and opted for retreating from the Sabi Sands Reserve entirely after the switch of power from the Mapogos to the Salati Coalition. As invincible as the Mapogos once were, an inevitable close of an era was bound to happen at one point or another. They attacked and protected until their lives ended. With that, the magnificent Mapogo coalition drifted away into a mysterious Ori sunset, where a sun would never rise upon them again. But what do you make of the Mapogo lion tribe? Residents in Italy have just reported a worrying event. They have said that thousands of birds mysteriously fell from the sky during New Year's Eve. And what's worrying is that this isn't the first time this has happened. At the moment, various different theories have been put forward for why these birds dropped to the ground, with local residents saying that birds in the air of Rome have been acting strange this year. One resident said the birds have been seen flying around in circles and not acting themselves, with others following on from this and saying that they're suddenly dropping from the sky and that they're not sure what's caused the birds to act like this. This recent discovery states that thousands of birds started to drop from the sky in central Rome, and this was before, during, and after fireworks were set off. The majority of the birds were discovered at the Tormini train station, with motorists and residents being able to capture the aftermath of the event. Although some blame the fireworks and the birds dropping to the ground, I've been suggested that this isn't what caused them to fall. Going back in February, residents in Rome once again reported a worrying event. Hundreds of birds suddenly dropped to the ground. This news came shortly after police in North Wales investigated a similar occurrence. Fast forward 2 months, and this was reported by residents in Rome. Strangely enough, residents reported that the birds acted very similar to those in Wales, saying that they were flying around in circles and then suddenly dropped to the ground. What's odd, though, is how many of these cases were happening so close to each other. As many have pointed out, it seems that these mass-buried deaths are happening every other month. And as of right now, no one seems to know why. Although researchers have given a variety of reasons why mass-buried deaths can happen, it's unusual for them to be happening around the same time as each other. One resident in Rome said the following about the event. Me and my friend were close to the area when this happened. We could hear the birds going crazy and flying around in circles. I've lived in the area for years and I've never seen anything like this. No one seemed to be sure why they were acting this way. They were flying like this for over 45 minutes before they started to drop one by one. It was like something from a movie and was actually quite scary. It was like something was affecting them that we couldn't see." End quote. It's reported that hundreds of birds were found in Rome shortly after this event. One source reported that the reason these birds were dropping were due to strong winds. This explanation wasn't met with open arms. Scientists and researchers have investigated this phenomenon over the years, and different theories have been put forward to try and explain why these birds suddenly pass away. Various things can affect these birds. This ranges from electromagnetic currents to things like poisons. As some have said, though, if these animals were poisoned, is it likely they would all drop at once? And in the same area as each other? In these situations, all of the birds can be found very close to each other. Some have said it's as if these birds were zapped with something, and whatever passed through them caused them to pass away on the spot. It does seem as though these cases have increased in the past year. Various reports have emerged from countries such as England, Wales, the Netherlands, and now Italy, and these are only the ones we know about. Many eyewitnesses have said they've seen something similar, but that the majority of the time it doesn't get reported by the news. As of right now, it's clear that something is affecting these birds, with some pointing out that these cases could be linked to each other in some way. Perhaps our planet is changing, or perhaps we are the cause behind these events. According to the United States Geological Survey Wildlife Health Center, in the United States over 175 mass bird deaths have occurred, and this has happened in the last 10 years alone. What's confused some researchers, though, is that it's not always known why this happens, with various other countries reporting similar occurrences. Back in the middle of September, reports were made that another mastiff was happening in the southwestern area of the United States, and that it has some scientists confused and worried as to why this is happening. Various theories have been put forward to explain why this is happening, from the insects they eat to the air they're breathing, to wildlife, and even other theories that suggest the magnetic field is playing up. For example, not flying away when cars were driving towards them, and just in general being down, something that's not really seen in this area. It wasn't long before eyewitnesses came forward and said that the wildlife wasn't acting normal, and some birds were just falling from the sky. When local researchers saw the numbers, they only then got an idea of how bad this was getting, saying that already hundreds of thousands of birds are showing this strange behavior, that the number could go into the millions. Residents in Wales have detailed seeing birds acting strange, noting that native species seem to be on the decrease, with one person saying the following: "In Ainsley, this was reported a while back, and this happened a few weeks after that initial event, but it didn't really get reported about. I discovered a few of these birds in my garden at the beginning of the year. What's strange, though, was during the middle of the night, I could hear some loud noises. They sounded like loud booms, and I did say to my partner that this will likely disturb the local wildlife. However, the next morning there were 7 of these birds in my garden. I did talk to my neighbors about the booms, but they said that they didn't hear them, with my partner saying that they think it might have been the military. I'm not saying the two events are linked, but I just found it strange how these loud booms happened, and then I found the birds in my garden the following morning." End quote. So what do you make of this report from Rome? And what do you think is going on at the moment in regards to these high number of birds dropping to the ground under mysterious circumstances? Dr. Sergio Canavero is an Italian neuroscientist and is someone who has been making the news in the last few years. This is because he and his team claim that they're close to being able to perform the first head transplant. Dr. Sergio has been claiming that he and his team are able to perform the head transplant and that they aim to do this on someone very soon. Some people have come forward to say they would like to participate in this. And this mainly comes from those whose bodies are no longer functioning as they should. So a surgery such as this one could potentially change their lives. One of the problems with these claims is that people aren't sure what is true and what isn't. The neuroscientist keeps popping up in the media every couple of years or so, and back in 2017 he claimed that he had successfully performed a hair transplant. This claim made news all around the world, with pretty much everyone saying what an incredible achievement this was. However, once the dust had settled, people soon started to ask questions. It turns out the head transplant was done on a monkey, and while it's reported that the monkey did survive the procedure, it's also claimed that the animals only kept alive for 20 hours due to ethical reasons. The next issue came when the doctor said he didn't reconnect the spinal cord to the monkey. Researchers said this would have been a big problem for the monkey as it would have been paralyzed for life. A lack of consciousness and not being able to survive past a day didn't give doctors in the field confidence. And it's caused the majority of people to say that these claims are likely a stunt. Regardless, the Italian neurosurgeon has said the procedure can be done and that it will likely happen within the next few years. Doctors have gone on to say that certain procedures can work while others just don't. For example, there was a story that was covered a while back when a young adult had a damaged spine. The doctors operating on them managed to reattach the spinal cord. But they said the reason this worked is because they were working with something that was damaged. When something is completely severed, it's a different story. It's one of the reasons why they believe the doctor's words are not rooted in fact. This idea has been thrown around before, and it's not as simple as just taking a head and placing it on a body. You can't just connect things in this way. Scientists have said, though, that although we might be years away from doing a head transplant, every year we are making new incredible discoveries in the field of science, and it's these ones that we should be celebrating. Since the dawn of the age of information, it feels as if humanity has been at a constant rate of breakthroughs and discoveries since the beginning of the 21st century. This means that every year we see new and exciting technologies and scientific breakthroughs that make the front pages. One recent breakthrough involves 3D printing, although the technique has been in practice for quite some time. 3D transplanted organs have been making strides in the field of organ development and seen in potential use for people of all kinds all across the world for different reasons. We've already seen humans' heart-growing labs and being built by the use of stem cells and structures built from 3D printed skeletons, but it appears that with recent breakthroughs the process will become more accessible to the public in the coming years. Developing their work on the years of previous research into the field, a team of research scientists from the Imperial College of London and the King's College London have worked around the clock to create new techniques for printing 3D structures to be used for human organs and tissues. They rely on the use of cryogenics to create structures that can mimic the mechanical properties of brain and lung tissues to be used to help repair damaged tissues without risk of rejection from donors and transplants. This could potentially help to solve modern-day medicine issues such as that of transplant rejection, organ and tissue shortages, and perhaps in the near future total blindness in a patient since birth. The potential to help repair and replace any damaged organs in the body, excluding that of the human brain without the expense of an organ donor, could mean the overall life expectancy of a human being going well past triple digits, and perhaps even longer than 150 years. This could mean that a person could theoretically live for hundreds of years longer than previously expected and still be in good enough shape with the addition of transplants and tissue repairs. The universal donor blood also made the news. As many people are aware, the nature of different blood types makes it a difficult problem faced by modern medicine facilities that need to ensure that the right blood type are given to certain people, as to prevent an immune response and the rejection of the new blood. This leaves only one blood type known as O, to be used as the basis of a universal donor blood type that can be accepted by all blood types in the world. Unsurprisingly, O blood is incredibly rare and leaves many of that specific blood type out of donors when they are faced with issues of blood loss and blood transfusions. Unfortunately, it appears that a recent scientific breakthrough might help research scientists to convert all blood types into the universal donor variation that can be used to help combat blood transfusions issues seen today. This revolutionary breakthrough comes from researchers from the University of British Columbia that believe they've discovered a new enzyme from the human gut that can help convert type A and type B blood types into a type O blood. This is done by using the M zones to help break down the sugars attached to red blood cells to help the body to distinguish between different blood types to then be allowed to be accepted as a universal donor blood type. There were previously discovered practices that could perform this task, though they were believed to be terribly inefficient. This new practice is believed to be more than 30 times more efficient than previously discovered methods, and we'll see practical clinical trials in the coming years. This could mean that in the next 5 years, this technology could be used to help make all blood types into universal donors and help to solve the chronic blood supply shortage seen all across the world. So what do you make of these recent claims and discoveries? UFO sightings are seen by thousands of people across the world, but for some the encounter doesn't stop after the craft has left the scene. Been some individuals that have gone on to detail mysterious encounters days, weeks, and even months after the initial sighting. UFO researchers who have looked into these claims have said that sometimes people can be marked, and when this happens it causes them to experience crafts and beings much more frequently than before the initial sighting. This is a subject that eyewitnesses and skeptics don't agree on. Skeptics will say these encounters and subsequent events can be easily explained, and that the majority of the time they have a natural explanation. However, eyewitnesses have said that in some of these cases, these sightings have gone on to change their life. And this is exactly what happened to one person I contacted. She requested that I keep her name private, so to make things easy, I will call her Anna. I saw an interesting post that Anna had put out, and she detailed that after experiencing something strange when she was young, she started to notice that strange marks would be left on her body. She said the following: where this all started, my knowledge was during school. When I was in elementary school, I'd have this dream at least twice a month. I would wake up and felt like it happened. In fact, I know it happened. I would go with several other children and families in some sort of bubble-like thing. And we go to this community where there was other children and families. Was all in a dome of glass. Everything was so colorful and vivid. The domes housed families, and there was long stretches that you'd walk on to get to other places. The domes had that iridescent rainbow like bubbles have. I remember there was no sun, only dark sky, but you could see just fine. Like there was sun shining. It was like the light came from underneath. It wasn't a frightening dream. I used to wake up in different parts of the house or on the floor, or with my head at the foot of my bed. I still have these overwhelming feelings of being watched, especially at night. Fast forward to now, and it started to happen again. The flashes never stop. Flashes of sometimes silver, gold, and purple and blue lights. Loud pitch humming sounds in my ear along with a weird pressure change. Waking up exhausted and feeling my heart race and feeling my body shake. My husband says he can feel the bed shake when I'm waking up in the morning. So I know I'm actually shaking. Now these marks have started to appear on my body. I haven't had the marks since I was a child. I don't have a bad or negative feeling about this. I don't think I'm trying to be harm. I now finally have a name for the hole-like marks I would get randomly. I call them scoop marks. I always explain them as holes. I have had one on my inner forearm for the longest time. Now I have this one on my forehead. I used to get 3 small red marks, and they look like blood under the skin. The dots formed a perfect triangle. I have had abductions since I was a child and am over it. I want to know what they want. Why me? I'm blood type O negative. So is my husband and children. My husband thinks I'm crazy as he's never had anything like this, nor does he believe in it. I've had abductions before, but they were never as scary as this one. It started off with me being in this huge sterile building with windows all around. It was nothing but darkness outside. I was walking at first and I felt uneasy, but I thought I was just there to visit and look around. It was lots of gray metal, dark blue and white. Think of a hospital but made from glass and metal piping. There were 2 floors, but the top floor only went halfway across. So as I was being led through the building, I peeked up there and saw big lights like operation or dentist lights. And there was also hospital beds. After I saw those, I somewhat panicked. I was then brought to a bed and told that they needed to find something inside me. I don't remember resisting, but I somehow ended up in the bed. The lady that was in charge of me put some kind of small patch on my upper arm and said it will calm me down. I felt myself getting really groggy, but was still conscious. I don't remember the 4 being hooked up, but I saw it. It was a yellow liquid. She laid on my bed and she must have laid it back too far because my sinuses filled up with a yellow liquid and it started to drip from my nose. I blew it out and it started to feel a little better. She wanted me to sit up and said something out loud, but I couldn't understand her. All along I was being instructed mentally, not verbally. As she was sitting me up, I somehow escaped. I remember pulling the 4 and getting out of bed. I ran to the door of this building and opened the door and woke up in my bed. She has since been confused about these mysterious symbols that appeared on her body. Interestingly, when she shared her story, others said to her that they've had the same thing happen to them and that when they dream of being abducted, they wake up to find these strange markings on their body. Noting that they only last for a few days before vanishing and leaving a small scar. Due to the markings appearing after having these strange abduction dreams, it's caused some to think that the 2 events might be linked. Others have said the symbols only appear when they have these strange dreams of being taken into grafts, and that when they appear in their body they always seem to be perfect, and that it doesn't look like this could form during the middle of the night, as they don't match typical scratches of things like bedbugs. So what do you guys make of these strange stories? And have you ever experienced anything similar? If you have, what do you think is causing them? Undoubtedly, one of the worst emotions a person will ever have to experience is that of having a beloved friend or family member disappear. It is unfortunate that there are so many missing persons cases that occur every year. Most missing people will have lost their lives or not have been found at all. There are times, however, when someone will be found again, alive and hopefully healthy. So today, we will be taking a look at 3 missing people's cases in which they have reappeared. Michelle Whitaker. Known by friends and family simply as Shelley, Michelle Whitaker went missing in August of 2002. Michelle was a waitress and had been arrested twice for drink driving in South Carolina, but was later released. Her arrests caused tension between her family and her, especially complicating her relationship with her mother. She was last seen trying to get a ride from a truck stop in Spartanburg. In 2005, an anonymous letter made its way to the police, stating that Michelle had been brutally attacked and that her body had been taken to Landrum. This, however, remained unconfirmed throughout the duration of the case. Jonathan Vick was a potential suspect for the attack and taking the life of both Michelle and Heather Sellers, his girlfriend. In 2006, he was also charged for taking the life of Dana Satterfield back in 1995. Jonathan Vick is also a suspect for taking the life of 2 other unsolved attacks, which led to the victims losing their lives. However, his involvement with Michelle was only ever speculated and never confirmed. Michelle continued to be a missing person after his arrest, and the case went cold for years afterwards. The police checked her credit card and social security number reports, often with no luck. A miracle occurred in 2008, when Michelle was found alive and living in Oregon. One of her neighbors recognized her picture on a missing persons database and contacted the South Carolina police. An emotional reunion ensued between Michelle and her family, who had begun to give up hope of ever seeing her again. She explained that her old life was too troubled, as she needed to get away and begin her life again. Linda Arteaga, a 53-year-old woman by the name of Linda Arteaga, disappeared in the thick, ruthless, and unkind woods of Arkansas, where the elements reigned supreme. The situation was so dire that the emergency officials declared it to be a search and recover mission, as opposed to the usual search and rescue, proving that they didn't believe they would find the woman alive after she had been missing for days in the dangerous wilderness. Linda Arteaga's niece, Shelley, worried night and day for her aunt's safety, though hope seemed lost with the knowledge that survival chances in such a dangerous place were low. There were moments when Shelley believed they wouldn't find her aunt alive, stating, "You understood they were looking for a body, not a survivor, and that's what we were kind of expecting." After several days of futile searching passed without a single trace of Linda, Linda's a volunteer found her vehicle in a place close. It came to light that Linda Arteaga had been out hiking with her brother, aged 56, Eddie Hoff. The two had gotten lost in the wilderness and were not able to find their way back to civilization. The two ended up unfortunately separated, with Hoff finding a way out of the woods only 2 days after their hike. But Linda dwelled in the wild for far longer. Hoff was the one who alerted Shelley about the trip, and how they had gotten lost and separated, but mistakenly thought he had seen his sister sitting on the porch of a family member's house. It was only after 4 days that Shelley and Huff realized something was wrong, when Linda hadn't been seen since the hike. It took 5 days for the searching party to even set out, 120 hours in which Linda was helplessly alone in the woods. 120 hours in which anything could have happened to her. 75 volunteers set out to search on both foot, horseback, and in vehicles. Miraculously, she found a way to survive. She had lost her flip-flops and had to walk barefoot for the majority of her desperate attempt at survival. Fortunately, she managed to sustain herself of watercress, nuts, and berries she found, as well as quenching her thirst from a creek. After she was rescued, doctors suspected that berries eaten by both Huff and Linda might have been toxic and caused paranoia and confusion in them both, thus making them susceptible to getting lost and splitting up. Dehydration and toxins in the berries may have caused Huff to hallucinate seeing Linda on the porch that day, thus making him believe she was safe for those precious extra hours that could have been used to look for her. Linda had quite an intriguing story to tell. She claimed to have had an experience with the legendary shadow people, though the concept of her hallucinating has to be considered. When she was found in the deep woodland, the woman was unnerved and paranoid. Both siblings had memory loss when it came to the events of their hike. She explained that, as far as she recalled, Hoff had gotten injured and she tried to find help. As she wandered through the woods, she found more hikers, but they didn't hear her calling out to them. As the days and nights passed, she swore she saw shadow figures observing her from the trees, bushes, and crevices in the woods. She claims that the next thing she remembers is the volunteer search party calling her name. John Darwin's disappearance, unlike other disappearances on this list, this one is quite possibly the most dastardly. Michelle Whitaker left her old life behind due to the grievances of her mistakes and wanted a fresh beginning, feeling like she couldn't face her family or loved ones again. Linda Arteaga was tragically lost in the woods for days on end, an undoubtedly horrific and traumatic experience for the woman. John Darwin's disappearance, however, was one of manipulation, greed, and the desire to profit off a tragedy. John Darwin and his wife were deeply indebted after purchasing 2 properties, the mortgage from one of these being £130,000. Mr. Darwin created an elaborate plan to fix the married couple's financial troubles that, in his eyes, was absolutely flawless. He planned to fake his own death and his wife and was going to help. In March 2002, John Darwin went out on his kayak. He was reported missing the same day when he failed to come to work. A huge sea surge took place to find him, as the sea is generally a tremendously dangerous place. And if someone goes missing at an aquatic scene, it is best to search for them immediately. Every second wasted is a second in which a victim could pass away. Nobody or trace of him was found. Following day, the wreckage of Darwin's kayak was discovered. The rescuers were puzzled, if not somewhat suspicious, as the sea had been calm the day he'd gone missing, and it seemed unlikely that anything could have happened to him on the waves. Still, John Darwin was presumed lost at sea and eventually pronounced deceased. The couple faked his death from 2002 to 2007. During this time, Darwin only to secretly move back in with and in 2003, and was granted £250,000 after his passing as part of his life insurance, which paid off their mortgages. In 2004, the couple decided they should move abroad, considering Cyprus. Darwin managed to obtain a passport under the name John Jones, yet he used his real address. From 2004 to 2007, John Darwin was traveling from Cyprus to Kansas to Newcastle and Cornwall using his fake passport, interchanging between the alias John Jones and John Williams. And then John chose Panama as the next place to live and flew out to see some properties. During this time, a photograph of them was taken and posted on the internet by a Panamanian property agent. They proceeded to buy an apartment for £50,000 under the name of their son, Ma, and returned to sell their home in the UK, and John remained in Panama. In May 2007, they bought a tropical estate in Escobar, Colón, worth £200,000. They returned to Panama in July of the same year and stayed there for 6 weeks. It was only in September of 2007 that Anne's work colleague became wary of the situation after she overheard a phone call and was having with John. Their home was sold for £295,000 in October and afterwards, and returned to Panama, ready to begin their new life together. This is until they realized that their identities would have to be confirmed by the UK police in order to live in Panama, and they plotted to have John fake amnesia over the past 5 years. He went to a police station in London, except between and selling their house and buying properties abroad, and her colleagues tipped to the police. They didn't buy the story. A police investigation had already been ongoing for months without their knowledge. They were both sentenced to 6 years in prison for fraud and forced to repay everything they took from the life insurance, cost of their sold home, and other fines and costs. To have a loved one go missing is an awful experience, and to think some people would take advantage of such tragedies in order to gain a profit is awful. Missing people's cases are never simple or easy to comprehend, and it's dreadful to consider all those who are currently out there, lost, abandoned, or deceased, without any hope of ever being found. We can merely hope that most cases of missing people will eventually be solved. But what do you make of these 3 stories of people who have disappeared and then reappeared? Island just off of the shore of Nova Scotia, Canada is most well known for the mysteries and legends surrounding it. Over the years, many theories and guesses have been drawn up aiming to explain the treasures, peculiar objects, and artifacts that have been discovered on the island. The quest to discover the treasure here has not always been successful, with 6 people losing their lives tragically from birthing the conspiracy of the curse. With the quest to find this treasure being so hazardous, the rare pieces found are truly exciting. So today, we'll be taking a look at 3 treasures that have been found on Oak Island: the Money Pit and the Inscribed Stone. In 1795, an exciting discovery was made upon Oak Island by 16-year-old Daniel McGinnis. McGinnis had been adventuring over to Oak Island for a fishing trip when he stumbled across a tree with markings upon it, which evidently were not natural. Beneath the tree a depression could be seen, with some neighboring trees having been removed. Some retellings say it was this that indicated, at least to Daniel McGinnis, that something may be buried beneath, though others point to a blockhand tackle hanging from the limb of a tree being the factor that encouraged further exploration of the unusual site. McGinnis, with the aid of 2 friends, got to digging. Despite the speculation as to other reasons, presumably the motivating factor to investigate the site is the piracy history of Oak Island. Oak Island was described as being in the golden age of piracy, according to the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. With Nova Scotia having very few European settlements within the 18th century, it was common knowledge that pirates would frequent the seas and land surrounding Oak Island, and so presumably Oak Island itself. With Oak Island being relatively uninhabited, it was the perfect place for these pirates to leave their treasures, with a famous confirmed example being Captain William Kidd, who admittedly buried his wealth in 1699. As the boys dug, they began to uncover a layer of flagstone. Though despite initial excitement, beneath it was only more dirt. Further investigation led the boys to find rotten wooden timbers that had been driven into the tunnel wall at approximately 10 feet deep. The same discovery was made again at 20 feet. These barriers continued to appear at regular intervals, blocking the teenage team from success. Eventually, the team decided to halt their excavation, having found very little and returning 2 weeks' time when their mission met a similar end. Years later, in 1804, a significantly larger group returned to conduct a formal excavation, eventually revealing a pit, which many theorized was created to conceal jewels or other items of monetary value. Once the team hit 90 feet deep into the Money Pit, a granite stone was discovered. This stone had some rather peculiar inscription symbols that even to this day have never been successfully translated. Whilst this stone is yet to be cracked, many guesses and partial suggestions have been made, with the leading theory being that this stone's mysterious message translates to 40 feet below 2 million pounds are buried. A translation presented by Lychee, a professor of languages at Dalhousie University. This message might simply be some hopeful souls feeling optimistic as to Oak Island's legends of treasure existing, or may give us another clue and place us one step closer to the fortune we suspect is hidden. The key to the code is believed to be found within Edgar Allan Poe's The Gold Bug, as this code appears to form the coherent sentence above. The stone was allegedly used as a doorstop or as a display item in the window of a bookbinder shop to encourage people visiting. While we are yet to stumble across the £2 million fortune, it is an exciting mission and a well-kept secret of Oak Island. Templar coin. Many coins have been discovered on Oak Island, each bringing with it a new, unique piece of history to the island. One coin in particular is regularly mentioned as the most intriguing. A short coin with a cross upon the surface is officially unnamed and unverified, though many see this as likely to have been in circulation amongst the Knights Templar, with the cross bringing this evidence. Referring to the coin as a short cross pinpoints 8 different classes of coins, all of which were made within the medieval time period of 1180 to 1247. These coins were therefore issued under the reign of 4 British monarchs, Henry II, Richard I, also known as the Lionheart, John and Henry III. These coins all held a short cross. If we were able to confirm it was one of these coins on Oak Island, that would certainly be an impressive feat, noteworthy to say the least, for these coins to be so widely used and so well preserved from medieval societies. To throw a spanner in the works, however, comes the revelation that the cross design from these British coin classes is vastly different to the one visible on the Oak Island coin, as the cross lacks a pellet design and has a cross for she, in which the ends of the cross fork out. Luckily, this cross for she is not all bad news, as this symbol is a heraldic symbol, believed to originate from the time of Theodosius II, Emperor of the East Roman Empire 402 AD to 450 AD, meaning forked. The symbol is visible on the walls of Jerusalem at the site of Jesus Christ's crucifixion, and on coins from later on in Theodosius' reign. With these more plausible explanations, the credibility of ties to the Knights Templar is being increasingly questioned, with these assumptions being referred to as perpetuating pseudo-history. Whilst the cross for she is present in the side of the Templar chancels, it was simply one amongst many engravings upon the church wall, accompanied by a winged dragon and many more. The cross also appeared to be identical to those found in the Dôme prison. In France, a prison that once held the Knights Templar when they were imprisoned for heresy. However, since the cross for she is believed to have been a fairly common heraldic symbol, neither of these immediately tie the Knights Templar to Oak Island, as one may have hoped. Had the coin been one of the Knights Templar, it would have provided evidence not only of the Templar hiding wealth on Oak Island, but in North America at all, an impressive feat given their being in Europe. Roman sword. In 2015, a fisherman pulled a Roman ceremonial sword from the waters surrounding Oak Island. Should the sword be authentic, would revolutionize our understanding and rewritten history as we know it. The sword would place the Romans in North America over 1,000 years before Columbus. The sword was discovered upon Oak Island by researchers for the History Channel series Curse of Oak Island, which shows viewers a pair of Michigan brothers attempting to locate, explain, and unravel the mystery of Oak Island treasures. Lead researcher J. Hutton Pulitzer has assumed the role of historic investigator and academic from the Ancient Artifact Preservation Society. He and his team published a research paper upon the Roman sword in 2016. He had theorized that the Roman shipwreck was found by the coast of Oak Island, and within this sunken ship was a Roman ceremonial sword, in seemingly good condition, having been well preserved. While the sword has only come to light within the last half a decade, Pulitzer explained that the sword had been taken from the shipwreck and onto a fishing boat decades ago by a fisherman and his son. The pair were reluctant to share this artifact, fearing they would be punished in accordance with the strict Nova Scotia laws surrounding the specific circumstances of retrieving items from shipwrecks. So what changed? In 2015, relatives of the now deceased finder decided it was necessary to share this remarkable finding with researchers. The authenticity of the sword has been in high debate, with many conflicting ideas and sources sparking a strong discourse in archaeological and historical circles. One opinion is that whilst the excitement of the sword had potential, it was short-lived, as the sword appeared upon inspection to be a modern replica of a Roman sword. Whilst the more exciting option would certainly have been for the sword to be genuine, for the sake of our history books, this is certainly the simpler explanation. On the other hand, some argue that the X-ray fluorescence testing found the traces of arsenic and lead that are characteristic of the Roman swords to also be present in this artifact. This revelation has led many to believe that the sword found on Oak Island is one member of a rare set of votive swords. For similar swords have been recovered, verified, and placed into museums or private collections. Many had called into question the authenticity of the sword, so the revelation of it being fake would not have been all too harrowing. Though with mixed opinions and ideas, it remains in high debate and controversy exactly what was discovered on Oak Island. Oak Island truly is a mysterious place, from the alleged curse to the pieces of treasure found so far. Will each new discovery give us another clue, or will we never find a supposed great treasure that lies concealed from us? But what do you make of these treasures found on Oak Island? Australia is known for its vast number of dangerous animals and creatures that can be found scattered throughout the country. Many dread the deadly spiders, snakes, sharks, and more, but there are other things to fear in the land down under. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 mysteries of Australia. Devil's Pool Haunted. The Devil's Pool is one of the most haunted places in all of Australia. It's located just outside of Cairns in the state of Queensland and has been a popular tourist destination for some time now. The Devil's Pool can be found amid an untouched rainforest near large boulders in the town of Babinda. To those who are unaware of the Devil's Pool's dark history, they may find the crystal clear water and streams to be a majestic spot to enjoy and take in the natural beauty. Unfortunately, it has been deemed by the Australian Aborigines as a dark and dangerous place where only bad things happen. The Aboriginal legend explains that a beautiful woman that came from the Yidinji tribe was married to a tribal elder. At some point during their marriage, the woman fell in love with the younger man and they began an affair. They ran off into the woods to start a life that no one would find them. However, the tribal elder was in a powerful position in their tribe and he sent search parties to look for them. Eventually caught and surrounded by the Babinda boulders, the woman threw herself into the water below and took her own life. She couldn't bear a life without her true love and saw no other way out. The Aborigines don't believe she ever left those waters and still remains there. Looking for young men she can lure down below the water with her. What was first seen as a harmless legend or tale has gained some traction over time, due to the number of young men that have gone missing and mysteriously passed away at the Devil's Pool. All but one of the missing or deceased have been men. It's also believed that the pool is more aggressive towards men that disrespect the area. One young man kicked a sign that was placed to warn tourists and he slipped, falling into the pool and lost his life. While the number of deaths is still debated, there have been at least 17 young men that have gone mysteriously missing or lost their lives since 1959. But what does that mean? How could they have mysteriously lost their lives? For starters, onlookers have witnessed victims being pulled forcefully and held underwater. There have been other mysterious ways these men have lost their lives. A 24-year-old man named Peter McGann climbed up the boulder and jumped through a small gap into the water below. Police divers were only able to uncover his body after 5 weeks of searching through the murky water of the bottom of the pool. Another young couple was also taken by the Devil's Pool during a flash flood. The woman ended up surviving, but the man was never heard from after that. One of the most recent disappearances was a 37-year-old man, Mr. Hoffman, whose body was found in October 2020, 48 hours after he was last seen. The man was there with another young man who successfully escaped the pool unharmed. A strong current ran through and swept Hoffman away. With so many horrible incidents, the area has been boarded up with railings and large signs have been placed around the Devil's Pool to warn people from swimming or getting too close. So why do people continue to explore the Devil's Pool despite its large sum of disastrous events? Maybe some fun that risk exciting. The Euroa Beast Cryptid. Our next Australian mystery takes place in the state of Victoria and concerns an unusual aquatic enigma that was first discovered in 1890. It's been described as a 30-foot-long beast with a bulldog-like face, and it was first spotted in an area near Euroa, Australia. It was seen in a swamp that has had a reputation for being haunted. Stories of paranormal energy, dogs going missing, and unusual sounds of snorting coming from an animal are not uncommon. One particular story involved a man who was in the swamp cutting reeds. He saw an animal splash and move by and did not think much of it at first. He returned the next day and saw it again, but this time he witnessed a face that looked strangely similar to that of a bulldog, only it was attached to a 30-foot body. After hearing about the unusual creature, more men flocked to the spot where it was sighted in the hopes they would come across it as well. They ended up spotting it and were able to describe it as yellow in color underneath, but a dark brown on the top of its body. After further investigation, some believe it to be a bell topper, which is a large serpent that was found in Queensland. It's also been compared to a notorious cryptid known as the bunny IP, which was known in that stalked waterways and took the lives of people, mostly choosing to go after children. Experts looked at the description of the unknown creature and determined it couldn't be the bunny IP because it appeared to be a mix of a fish and land animal. The people of Yoruba and nearby townships were panicked by the stories they heard about the creature and sought the help of Melbourne Zoological Gardens. The officials were skeptical and didn't believe that such an animal existed in Yoruba. Upon hearing their disbelief, a group of men and women from nearby towns gathered to pursue finding and capturing the beast. They searched day and night looking for it, but came back empty-handed. Since then, there has been no new accounts of the unusual animal. Do you think the Yoruba beast was real, or was it perhaps a figment of imagination? With no conclusive evidence, it's challenging for some to believe it existed, but who knows? We might just stumble upon the Yoruba beast when we least expect it. National Film and Sound Archive haunted the last Australian mystery surrounds what is known as one of Australia's most haunted buildings. The National Film and Sound Archive is found in the country's capital, Canberra. For over 50 years, it housed a range of spooky artifacts such as human skeletons and animal specimens. While it may not seem all that scary at face value, it has been regarded as a paranormal site by many ghost hunters. In order to properly understand the building's history, we must go back to the beginning when it was commissioned in the 1920s. It was supposed to be an entrance to the National Museum of Zoology. Colin Mackenzie was in charge of the project and had enormous plans for the building. He began collecting live and deceased objects to be stored in what would be a zoo. Shortly after work on the building commenced, the Depression hit and the government was unable to support the project. Years later, Mackenzie opened it to the public as the Institute of Anatomy. The collection grew and held skulls, mummies, and other ancient artifacts, becoming a popular destination for tourists visiting Canberra. It was wildly successful, and Mackenzie was the director of the institute until he passed away. Afterwards, the Department of Health moved to the top floor of the building and the museum remained open. By the 1970s, the institute was set to become a national museum, but was later turned into the National Film and Sound Archive in 1984. As you can imagine, Mackenzie's ghost was sighted over the years. Some describe the experience like a genie out of a bottle, where the outline of an elderly, well-dressed man would walk through the wall where his ashes were kept. Whilst that alone is frightening, another common ghost sighting is of a little girl who would come out of a gate in the old theater and make the children who were visiting laugh. Since the National Film and Sound Archive moved and an office space took over, people heard loud noises from recording booths and saw items fly around. Ghost hunters saw this as an opportunity to find the spirits that lived within the building, but they were unsuccessful. They came with 6 pieces of equipment that were drained from a full battery to empty before their eyes. But what do you make of these mysteries of Australia? There are a myriad of haunted places and artifacts all over the world, some dating back hundreds of years, some with gruesome and brutal backstories, some with a sense of vengeance, and some that have a little bit of everything thrown in. The idea of hauntings evokes all kinds of emotions, images, and for some even memories. Haunting has been extensively portrayed in film and literature, often playing on the experiences of the unlucky few. Ghost stories do make for good reading and watching, but what if those stories you watch or read from the safety of your sofa or bed became all the more real? So today, we'll be taking a look at 3 of the world's most haunted places and the stories behind them. Highgate Cemetery, London, UK. Just the word cemetery is capable of sending chills down some people's spines. Generally speaking, humans tend to find things associated with loss of life rather creepy, and the story behind Highgate Cemetery is not likely to alter their impression. Highgate Cemetery is chilling enough in pictures, let alone in real life. Amongst them are the singer George Michael, political philosopher Karl Marx, South African anti-apartheid campaigner Yusuf Dado, and scientist Michael Faraday. The cemetery, situated in North London, covers some 37 acres. Its spectacular Gothic architecture made it a fashionable place to be buried in Victorian England. Coincidentally, the same era that ghost stories and Gothic fiction began to rise in creativity popularity. Works such as Bram Stoker's Dracula, Edgar Allan Poe's poem The Raven, Robert Louis Stevenson's Jekyll and Hyde, and Henry James' The Turn of the Screw were all published between 1837 and 1901, owing to the reinterpretation of horror in Victorian times. It wasn't until the 1970s, however, that the most famous haunting story arose out of Highgate. In the late 1960s, Highgate Cemetery fell victim to vandalism. In fact, the tomb of Karl Marx had survived 2 attempted explosive strikes. In 1968, a group of young occult enthusiasts began visiting the cemetery, following various reports of paranormal activity in the cemetery. This activity included sightings of the deceased rising from sealed graves, phantoms drifting around the cemetery, and even an attack on a teenager, leaving physical scars. In the same year the group visited, what was described as a desecration of one grave was discovered. It was not known whether the occult group had anything to do with this, but the scene discovered was horrendous nonetheless. According to reports in the London Evening News, an unknown person arranged flowers taken from graves in circular patterns with arrows of blooms pointing to a new grave, which was uncovered. The coffin was opened and the body inside was disturbed. But their most gruesome act was driving an iron stake in the form of a cross through the lid and into the chest of the corpse. In the years following the bizarre finding, bodies of deceased animals with slashed throats began to appear in the cemetery. And when a local newspaper published the story of a man named David Farrant in February 1970, the Highgate vampire myth was further fueled. David Farrant had reported seeing a gray figure wandering amongst the tombstones that he believed to be supernatural. Soon after, David Farrant entered into a bitter ghost hunting dispute with self-proclaimed exorcist Sean Manchester. Sean Manchester declared the phantom a vampire, and the pair set about hunting it down. David Farrant was later arrested, and the ordeal ended in 1973, when Sean Manchester allegedly drove a stake through the beast's heart in the House of Dracula, in Crouch End, London. The legend, however, lives on to this day. The Troll of India. Southeast Asia may not be the first place your mind wanders to when you think of hauntings. However, Asia is rich in fascinating culture and tradition, and from this comes some interesting ghost stories. You'd be forgiven for not knowing what the subject of our next story is. It's prominent in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, and is a demonic, malevolent force taking the form of a woman. It's called a churl. The churl is described as the ghost of an impurified living thing and is also known as the tree spirit, as she tends to latch onto trees in the jungles of Asia. She allegedly takes the form of a beautiful woman luring men. She wants to revenge on into the woods only to take their lives or to take their vitality. The latter turns the men into much older beings. Churls are thought to come from women who have experienced an unnatural loss of life. This is often during pregnancy or childbirth or from suffering at the hands of her in-laws. Often churls will haunt the men of a certain family, as the spirit of the mistreated woman is related to them. The legend is thought to come from Persia, now Iran, where the churl forms from women who have lived an unsatisfactory life or who have unfulfilled desires. Once appearing to men, again often in a jungle, the mountains or other remote places, she removes her cloak of beauty to reveal a monstrous, gnarled appearance. The true form of the churl is a woman with a disfigured appearance. Depending on the country from which the legend originates, churls can have black tongues, no mouth at all, a face to resemble a pig, claw-like hands and fangs. This is far from the stunning appearance of a young woman dressed all in white that the churl allegedly shapeshifts to. According to Asian folklore, one can prevent the creation of a churl by either preventing its creation by treating a woman well during pregnancy, or by performing a series of rituals upon the body once they have passed away. In some parts of Asia, the ground where the woman passed away is purified or dug up and treated with mustard, which keeps the churl content. The failure to do this leaves the churl roaming the graveyards, battlefields, mountains and jungles of India and other South Asian countries. The Black Forest, Germany. Germany's Black Forest lives on the Franco-German border, with Freiburg in Germany being the nearest city to the mountainous area. It is said that the canopy of evergreen fir trees that makes up much of the forest's greenery is so dense that light cannot penetrate it even in the daytime. The Black Forest is a little chilling by name alone and has been a fitting setting for many ghoulish tales. The Brothers Grimm, authors of famous folktales Hansel and Gretel, Snow White and a Little Red Riding Hood, amongst many others, drew inspiration from the Black Forest. From pictures alone, you can see why the Black Forest was such a fantastic setting for the Brothers Grimm. It lends itself so well to stories of elves and fairies, to werewolves and magicians. There is no single haunted tale that originates from the Black Forest, rather several different alleged sightings and hauntings in the forest. These range from a headless horseman maniacally rampaging through the towering trees to the devil himself residing somewhere among the forest's sinister beauty. But there is one story set in the Black Forest that is perhaps the scariest work set in the area. It's called The Necromancer by Ludwig Flammenberg. Flammenberg's story is a compilation of vicious supernatural tales of taking lives and disappearances in the Black Forest. The dizzying plot follows two men, Herman and Helfrid, and the mysterious wizard Volkert the Necromancer. Necromancy is the act of communicating with the deceased and engaging in rituals or even raising them from the grave. Like Flammenberg's story, necromancy is based upon dark magic and superstition, which are both commonly associated with the mysterious Black Forest. Playing on the dangers of superstition, The Necromancer by Flammenberg serves as both a haunting horror story and something of a didactic warning to those who dabble in the dark arts. However, it is understandable that a setting as encapsulating as the Black Forest would create such a vivid tale, one of which most of us would most definitely not like to be a character in. There have been sightings of the other legendary and often terrible creatures that are said to reside in the forest that we mentioned earlier. And many who journey to the edge of the dark, shady expanse describe feelings of eeriness overcoming them as they venture deeper and deeper into the malevolent heart of the forest. These three stories surround themselves with their own horrifyingly unique backstory, from dark magic in an even darker forest, a ghostly, vengeful, shape-shifting apparition deep in South Asia, and a creepy graveyard. Would you dare to explore them? But what do you make of these most haunted places?